Understanding the benefits of CBM. Benefiting from CBM. How can the environment benefit from CBM? Drag each statement card over its correct answer. Encourages companies to produce more embedded emissions rather than direct ones. Allows subsequent reporting and taxes to be compatible with the WTO rules. Encourages companies towards cleaner industrial production in non-EU countries. Supports EU's climate objectives. Feedback. CBM will ensure that the EU's climate objectives are not undermined. The subsequent reporting and taxes are compatible with the World Trade Organization rules. Companies are encouraged towards cleaner industrial production in non-EU countries. How can CBM help EU producers gain a competitive edge? Comply with reporting obligations. Avoid supply chain risks. Reduce CO2 costs. How can CBM help with EU producers staying competitive? By confirming that a price has been paid for the embedded carbon emissions generated in the production of certain goods imported into the EU, the CBM will ensure that a fair price has been put on the carbon emitted during the production of carbon-intensive goods that are entering the EU. The carbon price of imports is equivalent to the carbon price of domestic production. Preventing carbon leakage with CBM. Definition. Carbon leakage occurs when companies relocate production to countries with less stringent climate regulations to avoid the costs associated with strict carbon policies in their home country or region. In this case, as the EU has many environmental regulations in place, it would be beneficial for producers to import products from outside the EU, where there are no stringent environmental laws and the cost of production is cheaper. Who is in scope of this regulation and needs to disclose? Both the reporting declarant and the installation operators of a certain product will need to disclose product-level data. In simple terms, CBM ensures that both EU-made and imported products face the same carbon costs. This way, EU producers are not disadvantaged, and there's less incentive for companies to move production to countries with lower or no carbon costs. To conclude, did you know? According to studies that look at the exports of CBM products, the most affected non-EU states under CBM would be the UK, Serbia, and Mozambique, as around 80% of their CBM exports go to the EU. What's next? Now that you've learned about how CBM can be beneficial, let's have a look at how do installation operators calculate their CBM emissions. CBM addresses the risk of carbon leakage by adding a carbon price on imports of certain goods from outside the EU. This price is set to match what it would cost if those goods were produced within the EU under its carbon pricing system, the EU Emissions Trading System, EU ETS. CBAM has been developed to reflect as much as possible the way in which emissions are covered by the EU ETS if the CBAM goods were produced in the EU.